Peace and assalamu alaikum. This is Bilal Abdullah Mujahid of Black Muslim in America, back at you again. It's been a little minute. It's after Ramadan. Hopefully all of our sins are forgiven, inshallah, ameen. And hopefully we continue to stay on the righteous path, ameen. And may Allah guide those to the righteous path as well. It's just something I wanted to touch on today. This whole Umar Johnson and Marc Lamont interview. I just wanted to speak on it a little bit, and I put a little header at the top of this. I said Umar Johnson on Marc Lamont's show was calling out so-called YouTubian coons who hold women to alleged Eurocentric standards and claims they are bashing them, and then he says, black women, you don't need a man to validate your work. And so I start off. I say Marc Lamont and Umar both pander to women and almost worship them in a sense. So it's no surprise he is saying such things. What I will agree with is that the manosphere, quote unquote, is really full of lames, full of mad coons. And many of these so-called, quote unquote, alphas talk down on women without giving them anything to build themselves up. There is a difference between very strong constructive criticism and just plain out bashing. So to Umar's credit, he is correct. Some are just bashing. But also at the same time, Umar is a lame. He's had bastard babies, didn't even marry the woman, and has issues with his baby mom about seeing his children. So I really can't fully listen to him when he says things like this. See, what's happening is black men are getting their money right, their minds right, and stepping up our standards for ourselves and our women. And we are stepping into taking the proper role as leaders of society and of our families and of our women. People like Umar, he seems to not like this because, Umar, although he does have real talk on many topics, I will give him that. He is similar to a preacher who gets women's money. Now, if black men start being the leaders of their women and, women won't look up to him and they just won't blindly follow him anymore, the same way women blindly follow preachers, they will begin to look to their own black man in their own lives. And a black man is not finna have some other man leading his woman. So this will in turn make Umar's numbers go down and them pockets go down. As well as many males today also, they almost worship women and would like to see them lead instead of them as a man leading. But if you go back to my old videos, this is what I said would happen, and it's starting to make me look at Umar with a side eye. If you go back to my old videos on this page I talked about how black men are getting on code and they are stepping up our standards and for ourselves and our women. We're calling out the BS and finally beginning to hold our women accountable for their actions. And this whole slut culture and baby mama epidemic in society, bad attitudes, bad sexual habits, uncoachableness, stubbornness, the whole gamut. We are calling it out with facts about the nature of man and woman and reality. And yes, we are doing this in a harsh way because we are in a war zone, people. We don't have time to pussyfoot around and give you the honey. You got to take this straight, no chaser. As well as, many women today live in a fantasy, and the only way to break that fantasy is to fling harsh truth, harsh, bold truth that is unadulterated. As Allah says in the Quran, verily we fling truth at falsehood, and falsehood is destroyed. But let's be clear, we are also giving this same harshness to the black men and telling ourselves that, yeah, we suck too, and we need to step up as well. Because if we don't step up, then the complaints and issues that we are calling out about our women will remain just that. They will just remain complaints and issues because we won't have anything to punish or reward with. But this is what I said would happen. I said once we start, doing this, you are going to begin to see folks coming out the woodworks. The lames and the trash women they protect start coming out and saying that we are bashing our women, we hate women. And they are going to do this under the guise of loving black women and protecting black women. But when someone truly loves you, they're not going to protect you from constructive criticism. They're going to give it to you raw and not beat around the bush because they want the best for you. These people want the status quo to remain the same. They don't want change. And this is where Umar and Marc, they lie somewhere in the mix of. Now, I'm not going to say Umar doesn't want black justice and liberation from white supremacy for our people. I believe he does. I just think he's mistaken in what's going on with black men stepping up. Like I said, we are in a war zone. If you want black men to step into our warrior class roles, then the women must submit and be the women we actually desire to protect. Be the women we actually want to give our lineage to produce more warrior roles. You can't do this when you're running around saying women don't need a man's validation. What you are really saying is women don't need a man, and yes, they do. We both need each other. That's why Allah made us together. Women need men to validate their worth, and it's a harsh truth because women don't value other women. At least not on the level that men do. And this is something deep I've learned from Jason Black's The Business. Men value women on a way higher level than women do. So women could never validate other women's worth. And you alone can't validate your own worth. I mean, you can try, but you would still need other validation to validate it. You see what I'm saying? For example, if I write 20 on a piece of paper and take it around and try to buy something with it, and I say, hey, this is worth $20, people. People will say, no, that's just a piece of paper with 20 written on it. But the real $20 bill is just a piece of paper as well. And, and the dollar in reality ain't worth much now. But it's worth what the whole world validates its value as, what the public validates it as. So the whole world sees this and says, yes, this is worth $20, and so it is. Now, there is nothing wrong with believing in yourself, believing you hold value, having a positive outlook. You should. But how do you validate that? As women, the men are going to validate what you think or invalidate it. Now, you may pump your head up, but if you go into the sexual marketplace and no one actually says, yes, I believe that, I agree with that, no one actually validates what you think your worth is, then it's only valuable to you, and that's about it. Because you can't really do anything with it beyond that. Once it's just valuable to you, you really can't do much with it except, feel valuable to yourself, and that's cool, I guess. But women want to be validated, so that's why it's important. This is one of the main reasons why a woman needs a man to validate her worth, because that's how it is proven. So when Umar says this, all I really hear is lame talk. Then he goes on to say how these YouTubians, or whatever he calls them, are holding women to Eurocentric standards. See, he's making himself sound like a real lame right now. And I got respect for Umar on certain things, but he got to be quiet on this. What this is shaming black men, and he's shaming black men for the sake of women, for the sake of him still getting donations, for the sake of sexual access. Men wanting a fit and shape woman is not a Eurocentric standard. See, what he's trying to do is slickly move the goalposts. And this is how obesity became acceptable in our community in a way. See, what Umar is doing is saying, he's not going to say this, but he'll hint at it. And he may even say, if you listen long enough, he's saying, our women are naturally thick. But the reason he is saying this is to move the goalpost into accepting women who are overweight and fat. Thick is not fat. See, these lames started that thick, calling fat girls thick. They started that in the past when they wanted easy sexual access. Back in the day, if you was mad overweight, dudes wouldn't mess with you. And if they did, it was on the low and they moved on. But, after the drug epidemic hit, after the jail rate skyrocketed, after the baby mama epidemic hit, fellas started slacking in their standards and started just trying to get easy sexual access. So they saw the fat girls and they wanted the easy access, and they was like, oh no, you're not fat, girl, you thick. And that's how the word thick became synonymous with fat. So this is just shaming men who have fit standards for their women. Black men, the only men who lame dudes and women feel we should not have standards. Now, Umar goes on to talk about how he doesn't like this manosphere stuff because it seeks to blame black women for the ills that go on in the black community. And see, this is why I don't get into that manosphere stuff too deep, or as Jason calls it, the winosphere, because Umar is correct on that to a degree. When it comes to the winosphere, that's all they're doing. They are complaining and then talking about female nature, and then that's it. Just keep on complaining. Some of these dudes' answers is to even buy blow-up dolls. Some is to leave women alone totally and go their own way, which seems damn near gay. And then others are telling you to go where you're celebrated, which is code speak to seek out interracial sex. These are not the answers to the problems or issues. But at the same time, Umar then goes on to say, if you listen to the interview, Umar then goes on to say that there are issues and problems that men have and that women have. So he is admitting that these discussions are basically necessary. So we can't ignore the issue. See, what's happened is the focus has been totally on the men and us holding ourselves accountable, and the world constantly making excuses for women. But now black men are like, yep, you right. We got to get on point. But we not letting the women off the hook. The whole team sucks, and we got to address both sides. And now that our women are being addressed, it's now a problem. But if we are a team, and as Umar says, we need each other, which I agree with, to fight white supremacy, then we have to be blatantly honest with both sides. Period. And we can't hold any punches. And this is why I don't follow the likes of Kitten Heels, because his stuff is one-sided. Most of these manosphere folk stuff is totally aimed at women, and this is what Umar is addressing. But he needs to expound upon what he says, because he says we both have our issues and problems. Because what is happening is that he is attacking the just criticisms that need to be had for us to build. You have to destroy to rebuild sometimes, and this is what is happening. Address the points. Don't just gloss over them and say, yeah, we both got issues, and then that's it. That's not being fully honest. And yes, you have to save the black family. This is what he goes on to say in the interview about saving the black family. But how will you do that if we're not on point? Especially the head of the family, the men. How are we going to do that if there are no strict standards to fight this war as a black family against white supremacy? I'm not down with using blow-up dolls. I'm not down with turning away from women or interracial sex. I want my black woman, and I need my black woman. And that's why that's what I call my black people too. And that's the difference. As well as we're going to focus on both male and female because we are a team. And Umar confirms that to save the black family, you have to start with the black man because he is the head. So he's saying don't focus on one, but then on the other hand, he's saying we should focus on one. He's proving that we have to focus on the issues of both. He's proving it. And then Umar goes on in this interview to talk about how he even calls the black woman out, saying how she needs to discipline their sons. So you're doing what we're doing. You are addressing the issues. But then his answer isn't that she needs to find a man because only a man can raise a man and properly discipline a young boy. No, he's telling mothers to be the dad and the mom. These women chose to be single mothers, and the only way to fix it is they need a man. But how are they going to get a man if they have all these issues? See, that's where broadcasts like The Business come in. That's where you have people calling out the issues and how to fix them to attract a proper man. And this is why I say he's caping, because he's doing the same thing we do, but then shaming us for it, for the women's sake, but putting it under the guise of protecting them and the family. But what's crazy is, in this interview, he talks about how we shouldn't blame each other and how the manosphere is blaming black women. But then he goes on, but then he says he don't like how black women have to be, the mother and the father. But then he says, I would blame the black men for not stepping up. What? See what I mean? He's caping for the destructive behaviors of the single mom and blaming the men alone. This is what females do. They will generalize and make light of their issues, but then say, but them men's though. And this is what he did in this interview. He says, oh, it's so sad that they have to be the mom and the dad looking for sympathy. But the problem is these black men ain't stepping up. Look, a man in general doesn't want to raise someone else's bastard child. But at the same time, there are some men who will step in and do that job. But the problem is the single mother has all these deep-rooted issues that haven't been resolved that keep men away from her, adding to that being a single mom, and she's only left for concubine status. What he's saying is we, as black men, need to be fine with black women having bastard children, and we need to save them from their own mistakes. And you know what that's going to do? That's not going to strengthen black families. It's going to incentivize black women to continue to have bastard children outside of marriage. It's going to incentivize having nasty sexual habits because they going to take care of it. So don't punish bad behavior. Just gloss over it and fix it. It's like saying your child keeps knocking over the vase and breaking it. And instead of giving them a pop on the hand, you just keep going on and buying a new vase, and then they do it again, and you go and buy another one, then they do it again, and you just go buy another one. There's never no discipline. You haven't addressed the issue. And now the child sees, well, I can keep doing this over and over because ain't nothing going to happen. Now your whole house is getting torn up because you haven't addressed the issue. So yeah, I just, that was what was on my mind when I saw this interview. I peeped it out. Leave your thoughts and comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This has been Bilal Abdullah Mujahid of Black Muslim in America. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, peace and assalamu alaikum.